The air outside the film studio was dry and heavy, thick with the heat of a Los Angeles summer afternoon. Michael sat on the curb just beyond the security gates, his backpack wedged under one arm and a folded resume in the other. It had creases from being clutched too tightly, not out of confidence but out of desperation. The guards inside the booth had already waved him off twice that morning, but he could not bring himself to leave. He stared at the logo on the tall white building across the street. Paramount Pictures. It looked like heaven and hell at the same time. Michael had not planned to be here. A month ago, he was driving trucks on graveyard shifts and stocking shelves on the weekends to cover rent and diapers for his 3-year-old daughter. But when the company downsized and laid him off, the weight of failure returned like an old, unwelcome friend. His wife, Jessica, tried to reassure him, but he saw the truth in her eyes. They were hanging by a thread. He had printed 20 resumes and decided to walk from studio to studio, hoping someone, anyone, would take a chance on a man who had never worked a day in film but could paint, sweep, load, carry, and stay silent if needed. Just give him a job. "Sir, you can't stand here," the guard said again, poking his head from the booth. "You're not on the appointment list." Michael nodded silently, stood up, and stepped back toward the sidewalk. Same script, different studio. Then he heard the sound, not from the security speaker, but from behind him. The soft hum of an idling car. A black SUV had pulled to the curb, tinted windows. The kind of car Michael had seen only in movies or around big-name premieres. He turned instinctively and took a cautious step back. The window rolled down. Michael froze. Keanu Reeves. He blinked once. Then again, it really was him. Hair tied loosely, wearing sunglasses and a simple black t-shirt, not surrounded by a team, not in a rush, just watching him. "You all right, man?" Keanu's voice was calm but alert, not fake nice, not condescending. Michael swallowed hard. "Just trying to find work. Any kind." Was. Keanu looked at the security booth, then back at him. "You got a resume?" he asked. Michael fumbled to unfold it. Yes, sir." Keanu leaned forward, accepted the paper without flinching, and scanned it. His eyes lingered longer than Michael expected. "You ever work on a film crew?" Keanu asked. "No, sir, but I can learn. Fast." Silence. Then Keanu smiled. "Barely, just a flicker. I believe you." Michael blinked again. "You do." Keanu nodded and pulled out his phone. "Wait here." The window rolled up. The SUV rolled forward, past the studio gates. Michael stood stunned, heart racing. What just happened? Behind him, the guard mumbled, "What the hell?" 10 minutes passed. 15. Michael sat back on the curb, hope wrestling with humiliation in his chest. Then the gate buzzed. A second guard approached. "You, Michael?" the man asked, glancing at a clipboard. He nodded slowly. "You've been cleared. Go to stage 3. Ask for Riley. You're shadowing props today." Michael stood up slowly, still gripping the resume. "Wait," the first guard said. "Who approved that?" The second guard shrugged. "Some guy named Keanu Reeves." Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked at the building again. Suddenly, it did not look like a fortress anymore. It looked like the first open door in years. Michael walked past the studio gates as if he had stolen something. Every step felt heavy, not from exhaustion but from disbelief. The lot was buzzing with quiet activity. Men in cargo shorts pulling carts, women with headsets whispering into walkie-talkies, cameras being wheeled into position like sacred artifacts. He felt like an outsider sneaking into a world that was not built for people like him. Yet the guard had nodded, the clipboard had his name, and someone named Keanu, had opened a door. Stage 3 loomed like a warehouse from the outside. Inside, it was chaos hidden beneath purpose. Lights hung from rafters. Black curtains shifted with each movement of air. People hurried around, but there was rhythm to the madness. Michael stood awkwardly near the edge, unsure of where to go, when a short woman with a streak of silver in her hair and a clipboard in her hand spotted him. "You, Michael," she called. "Yes, ma'am," he said, clearing his throat. She motioned him over without looking up from her notes. "Props team, you're shadowing Daryl. Do not touch anything unless told. Do not speak to actors. Do not block cables. And if you hear the word rolling, freeze." Michael nodded quickly, absorbing it like gospel. Daryl turned out to be a wide-shouldered man with kind eyes who handed him a set of gloves without ceremony. "Help me with the crates. That light bar's going to fall if we don't stabilize the rig." Without hesitation, Michael got to work. He lifted, held, adjusted, sweat dripping down his back beneath his plain shirt. He did not talk. He did not ask questions. He only listened closely. When Daryl adjusted a clamp, Michael memorized it. When the set decorator yelled for a paint sprayer, Michael already had it halfway there. By the end of the first hour, Daryl grunted. "You sure you never done this before?" "No, sir," Michael replied. "Well, you work like someone who needs this." Michael just smiled faintly. "I do." They broke for lunch later than scheduled. Michael stood aside, unsure if he was even allowed in the catering line. Most people chatted in circles, laughing about past shoots or some actor's weird diet. He kept to himself, drinking water slowly, his stomach quiet even though he had not eaten all day. Then he heard the voice again, calm, familiar. "You made it." He turned, startled. Keanu was there, tray in hand, sunglasses off. No cameras, no entourage, just a guy in jeans and worn boots, like someone who had been on set all day, because he had. Michael stood up, awkwardly brushing his hands on his jeans. "Sir, I can't thank you enough." Keanu shook his head. "You don't have to. You showed up." They sat together at the edge of the lot, away from the bustle. Keanu asked him where he was from. Michael told him about Jessica, about Layla, his daughter, about the layoffs and the last 6 weeks of spiraling. He did not dramatize anything. He just told it straight. Keanu listened, truly listened. Not the way people pretend to while checking their phone, but fully present, eyes fixed, nodding, asking thoughtful questions. "Do you want to keep working in film?" Keanu asked finally. Michael hesitated. "I want to work anywhere. I am not disposable. But yeah, this feels like something real." Keanu nodded slowly, as if committing something to memory. "I'll make a call," he said quietly. "Finish the week. You'll be hearing more." Michael stared at him, overwhelmed. "Why me?" he asked. Keanu stood, brushing crumbs from his pants. "Because someone once gave me a shot when I was just another nobody," he said. "And you don't look like a nobody to me." As Keanu walked away, Michael remained seated, blinking against the sunlight. For the first time in months, his heart beat with something other than fear. It beat with purpose. By the end of the week, Michael was no longer just shadowing. He was handling. Daryl started tossing him keys to the storage units, trusting him with light placement, and even letting him coordinate minor prop resets between takes. The crew stopped seeing him as the new guy who got in through a fluke and started treating him like part of the machine. There was something sacred in that rhythm. The set quieting when the director raised his hand, the soft hum of a dolly track sliding, the sharp clack of a clapperboard slamming down. Michael did not just witness it. He became part of it. One afternoon, as the crew reset for a second take, Riley, the clipboard woman from day one, motioned him over. "The producer wants to see you," she said, pointing toward a smaller building near the studio offices. For a second, Michael's heart dropped. Was this the end? Had someone realized he was not union, that he had no formal credentials? But when he walked into the room, he found a calm man in a denim jacket, seated across from Keanu. The man smiled and said, "You did good this week. We're bringing you on for the rest of the shoot. Props assistant, babe. You'll get the paperwork tomorrow." Michael did not know whether to cry, shake hands, or fall to his knees. Instead, he just said, "Thank you," in a voice that almost cracked from holding everything in. Keanu, sitting nearby with a cup of coffee, looked up and added, "Told you he'd earn it." There was no fanfare, no big applause, just quiet respect. The kind that only grows when someone sees you at your lowest and still bets on your rise. That night, Michael sat in his car before heading home. He did not start the engine right away. The paper contract sat on the passenger seat. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone and texted Jessica. "I got the job. Long term. It's real." Her reply came within seconds. Just 3 words. "You did it." Outside, the streetlights hummed, and the studio gates stood silent behind him. But inside, something had shifted. Not just in his career, in his soul. For the first time in a long, long while, Michael no longer felt invisible. The apartment smelled faintly of microwaved rice and jasmine soap when Michael walked in that evening. It was a modest 2-bedroom with paint chipping near the windows and water stains in the ceiling corners. Jessica was sitting on the worn couch, cradling Layla in one arm and sorting through a pile of overdue bills with the other. Layla, only 3, looked up when the door opened, her tiny arms lifting instinctively. She had grown quieter over the past few weeks, as if even a toddler could feel the tension in the air. But tonight, Michael dropped to his knees, opened his arms wide, and said one word that changed the room. "Guess." Layla waddled toward him, giggling the moment she saw the bright grin on his face. She threw herself into his arms, her tiny hands gripping the collar of his shirt. "Did you bring ice cream?" she asked, eyes wide. Michael laughed, his heart swelling as he pulled her in tighter. "Better," he whispered. "Daddy got a job. Real one. On a movie set." Jessica looked up, stunned, her lips parting but no words coming. "It's Keanu," Michael said. "The actor. He helped me." For a second she did not move. Then she stood and walked over, pulling both of them into a hug so full it felt like breath coming back after drowning. They sat on the floor as Michael explained everything. The props crew, the studio, the week's work, and the contract waiting in the glove compartment of the car. Jessica listened quietly, one arm still around Layla, who kept interrupting with questions like, "Is Daddy gonna be on TV?" And "Can I go see the movie set?" Michael answered every question with the patience of someone who had just remembered what hope felt like. That night, Layla laughed more than she had in weeks. She danced around the living room in pajamas too short for her ankles, singing nonsense songs about movie stars and daddy's tools. Jessica made tea. Michael watched them both like a man seeing color again after years of gray. When Layla finally fell asleep between them on the couch, Michael leaned his head against Jessica's shoulder. "It might not last forever," he said softly, "but it's a start." She took his hand and squeezed it. "Forever starts with something." They sat in silence, the soft hum of a cheap fan filling the background. And for once, the silence was not heavy, to his peace. And Michael knew, no matter how long this job lasted, no matter where it led, Keanu Reeves had given him something no director, no paycheck, no applause could ever buy. A second chance of being a man his daughter could look up to again. It was early morning when Michael returned to the lot for his first official day as a paid crew member. The sun had not fully risen, but the air already buzzed with quiet purpose. Gaffers adjusting lights, costume racks rolling over concrete, breakfast carts steaming. He moved faster now, more confident, wearing a lanyard with a laminated badge that actually bore his name. No more waiting outside gates, no more explanations. But it was not until he rounded the corner to the props trailer that it hit him. There, propped against the side of a folding table, was a black canvas chair. It was ordinary, scratched aluminum legs, frayed edges, but on the back, printed in white block letters, was the word, Michael. For a moment he just stood there, staring at it. The crew bustled around him, but Michael could not move. His throat tightened. That single word, stitched in all caps, did something years of pay stubs and odd jobs had never done. Said, "You belong here." No one had ever saved a seat for him before. Not at school, not at company meetings, not even at family gatherings when things got tense. But here, on a film set he had once only dreamed of touching, someone had taken the time to mark his presence, to say, "This man matters." He reached out slowly, fingers grazing the canvas like it was sacred. Darrell approached from behind, coffee in hand. They do that for everyone who makes it past week 1, he said casually, then paused when he saw Michael's eyes. You could. Michael nodded, but his voice caught before he could answer. He looked away quickly, pretending to check something in his bag. Yeah, he finally said, clearing his throat. Just didn't expect it. Daryl gave a knowing smile. Nobody ever does the first time. As the cameras rolled that day and Keanu moved through scenes with effortless calm, Michael worked harder than ever, resetting props, adjusting placements, helping grip crew between shots. But every time he passed that chair, he glanced at it like it was a landmark, not because it was flashy, but because it told the truth. He was no longer invisible. It was supposed to be just another prop reset. The scene was tense. A hospital corridor drenched in cold blue light, with Keanu pacing as a grieving father. The set was quiet, the kind of quiet where even breathing felt too loud. Michael stood at the edge with a clipboard, making sure the prop table and 4-pole were placed precisely as rehearsed. Then suddenly the director, a wiry man named Levin with thick glasses and a sharp voice, called out, "Where's the guy who did the setup yesterday? The one with the toolbox and the steady hands?" Crew members looked around. A finger pointed. Michael. Michael stiffened. "Sir?" he asked, half expecting to be scolded. But Levin waved him over without looking away from the monitor. "You placed this tray here, right?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, that's where it was in the last take." Levin pointed toward a side table, deep in the background of the shot. "I want you to reset it mid-scene when Keanu exits. Quiet, precise. You'll be in frame, blurred, but your timing has to be perfect." Michael blinked. "Me? On camera?" Levin sighed impatiently. "It's not about your face, kid. It's about realism. Keanu exits, you pass behind with a tray. Clean, invisible like a real nurse. Can you do that?" Michael swallowed the lump rising in his throat. "Yes, I can." The crew prepped quickly. A countdown was called. Michael took position. His palms were damp with nerves, but he studied the tray and counted his steps in his head. The scene rolled. Keanu's performance was haunting. A man broken but holding it together. Michael almost forgot to move. But then, right on cue, he stepped into frame. Low, controlled. No stumbles, no clinks, just motion. When cut was finally called, Levin muttered, "Good, real good." Keanu glanced over, offered a subtle nod. Nothing flashy, just respect. Michael stepped off set, heart pounding. It was less than 5 seconds of screen time. No lines, no close-up, but to him it felt monumental. Not because it made him an actor, but because he had become part of the scene, a piece of the story being told. A man once begging for work outside the gates had just walked through a shot alongside one of the biggest stars in the world, and no one had questioned it. That night, when he told Jessica about it, she did not say much, just reached across the dinner table and held his hand. They both knew this was not about fame. It was about dignity, and dignity, once lost, is the hardest thing to get back. The final day on set felt different. Quieter, but somehow heavier, like the air knew something was ending. Crew members posed for photos between takes. Makeup artists shared inside jokes. Even Levin, usually curt and focused, offered a rare smile as he shouted the last cut of the shoot. Michael, now familiar with every cable, corridor, and backstage exit, moved through the space like he had always belonged there, but beneath the rhythm of cleanup and breakdown. He felt the ache of uncertainty returning. He had no idea what came next. The gig had always been temporary, a 4-week assignment born from a fluke encounter with a Hollywood legend. Now that the shoot was done, would it all just fade? As he rolled up extension cords and stacked and used props, he noticed something taped to the back of his chair. It was a plain white envelope, his name written in thick black marker across the front. He looked around, but no one claimed it. He opened it slowly, cautiously. Inside was a folded piece of studio letterhead with a typed message. "Thank you for showing us what heart looks like behind the scenes. We would like to offer you a permanent spot on our production crew for future projects. Expect a call soon. There was no signature, just a small hand-drawn smiley face in the corner, almost like someone was telling him, "Yeah, this is real." He stared at the page, eyes stinging. For a long time he said nothing. Then he smiled, not wide or dramatic, but quiet, steady, like the ground beneath him had finally stopped shaking. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the studio gates, Michael lingered a little longer than the rest. The stages were empty now, the chaos packed up into crates, the noise replaced by a still, content silence. He looked back once before leaving, not as a man who had been lucky, but as a man who had proven he deserved the chance he was given. As he stepped into the parking lot, Keanu was there again, this time leaning casually against the lighting truck, sipping from a paper cup. "Heard they're keeping you," he said. Michael nodded. "Yeah, they are." Keanu smiled softly, then added, "Told you all you needed was one open door." Michael looked down for a moment, then asked, "Why me, though? Out of all the people you could have helped that day?" Keanu finished his drink, crushed the cup, and tossed it into a bin. "Because you didn't ask to be saved," he said. "You just asked to be seen." The theater lights dimmed as the opening score swelled, and Michael sat frozen in his seat, Layla on his lap, Jessica beside him clutching a small bucket of popcorn. It was the film's premiere, held not in some massive red carpet event, but in a modest screening room reserved for crew and their families. The room was filled with people Michael now knew by name. Grips, makeup artists, sound techs, background actors. Still, he felt a different kind of nervous tonight. Not the anxiety of not belonging, but the pressure of hoping his daughter, his family, would see what this job had truly meant. Layla bounced with excitement, unaware of the journey it had taken to sit in this very room. When Keanu appeared on screen, a hush fell over the audience. His performance was raw, heartbreaking. And then, just past the halfway mark in that quiet hospital corridor scene, the camera panned, and there it was, a blurry figure in the background, moving with a tray, subtle and calm. Not the focus of the frame, not a character with lines, but present, real. That was Michael. Jessica's hand squeezed his knee. Layla pointed at the screen and whispered, far louder than expected, "That's my daddy." A few people chuckled softly, but Michael's eyes welled up, not because of screen time, but because his daughter recognized him in a world she had only seen from a distance. For that one moment, he was not just watching a movie, he was part of one. As the credits rolled and names began to appear in clean white type, Michael felt his breath catch. He waited, scanning the list as it flowed, and then, near the bottom but clear as day, it was there. Michael Carter, props assistant. Layla clapped her hands. Jessica leaned her head on his shoulder, and Michael sat still. Because seeing your name scroll up on a screen might not mean much to the world, but for a man who once stood outside studio gates with nothing but hope and a folded piece of paper, it meant everything. It meant he had arrived, not through luck, but through presence, through persistence, through being seen, not as a problem to solve or a man to pity, but as someone worthy of space, credit, and belonging. 3 months had passed since the film wrapped, and Michael had settled into something that finally resembled a rhythm. He was still with the production crew, bouncing between shoots, loading trucks before sunrise, sometimes staying late to wrap sets under moonlight. It was not glamorous, but it was honest, stable, and for a man who once counted loose change at gas stations, it was more than enough. He and Jessica managed to clear 2 overdue bills. Layla's laughter came easier now. She asked every night if Daddy would be in the movies again tomorrow. Life was not perfect, but it was good. And then, on a Monday afternoon, his phone rang. Unknown number, Los Angeles area code. He almost ignored it. Probably a telemarketer, but something told him to answer. "Hello," he said, cautious. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. Direct. "Hey, Michael. It's Keanu." Michael nearly dropped the phone. For a second, he thought it might be a prank. But then Keanu continued, casual as ever. "Hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Michael stammered. No, sir, not at all. Just surprised. Keanu chuckled gently. I'm working on something new. Small indie film. Tight budget but tight crew too. I gave the director your name. We need a second unit props lead. Not a shadow. Not an assistant. Someone who can run their own section. I told him you were ready. The words sank slowly, like drops of water into dry earth. Michael tried to find the right reply, but all he could manage was a breathless, You really told them that? Keanu's tone was steady. I did. Because it's true. There was a pause, the kind of pause that carries weight. You earned this, Michael. I just made sure the right people saw it. They spoke for a few more minutes, going over schedules, basic expectations, and names. When the call ended, Michael sat in his car, not moving, not even breathing for a moment, just staring at the phone in his hand. It was not just about the promotion. It was about the fact that someone like Keanu Reeves, a man adored by millions, admired across the world, had remembered him, believed in him, and vouched for him when no one else had. That was more than opportunity. That was legacy. And this time, he would walk through the door not as the struggling father from the sidewalk, but as a man who had built something real from nothing but dignity and grit. The sun was just beginning to rise when Michael pulled into the lot. The new shoot was different. Smaller, quieter, more personal. As second unit props lead, he now carried a clipboard of his own, gave directions, and signed off on deliveries. But he still arrived early before most, just to breathe in the stillness. There was something sacred about an empty set, as if the space held memories before scenes were ever shot. As he walked toward the stage doors, he glanced toward the studio gate, a habit he never lost. And there, standing just beyond the checkpoint, was a man, mid-40s, wiry frame, holding a folder of papers. His shirt was damp with sweat, and his eyes flicked from the security booth to the sidewalk like he was unsure where to go next. Michael froze. He knew that posture, that look, that quiet desperation wrapped in politeness. It was a mirror of his own past. Not years ago, but mere months. He approached the gate slowly. The guard glanced over but did not move. Michael nodded and gestured toward the man. "Hey, brother," he said gently. "You looking for someone?" The man straightened. "Yeah, I was hoping to speak with someone from set. About work. I do carpentry and painting. I've done stage stuff before, but I just need something steady. Even for a day." His voice cracked on the last word. Michael recognized that too. That break, where pride tries to hold, but the weight of survival presses harder. Michael looked down for a second, then reached into his backpack and pulled out a card. The new crew ID badge he had been issued just days before, with his title printed beneath his name. He flipped it over and scribbled a number on the back. "Talk to Riley. Dage2. Tell her Michael sent you. And tell her I said we could use another pair of real hands." The man looked at him in disbelief. "Really? You don't even know me." Michael smiled faintly. "Someone didn't know me once either, but they gave me a chance." He paused, then added softly, "Don't waste it." The man nodded quickly, eyes glassy. "I won't. I swear." As Michael turned and walked through the gates, he felt a quiet warmth rise in his chest. Not pride, not satisfaction, but a deep, steady peace. The kind you only earn by surviving long enough to reach back for someone else. In that moment, he was no longer just a name in the credits. He was the man who used to stand outside the gate, and now he held it open.